Hey guys, most people get stuck in their own circle of repetitive cycles in their life. And that's the topic that we're going to be talking about today on the Creating Consciousness podcast. So, if you are stuck in a repetitive cycle or have been stuck in a repetitive cycle, in this episode, I'm going to share why you get stuck there and what you need to do and what you need to not do in order to actually create real change in your life. So you guys are going to love this episode. I'm sharing about part of my journey of having this seemingly unending, never ending cycle of being broke, right? To now, fast forward quite some time, having a completely different human experience. And here's the thing, guys, is that I didn't have anything really external, or I wasn't able to do something in order to change my external, right? So it wasn't something that came from outside of me to save me, right? Nobody's going to save you. And you're not entitled to that, right? You look in the mirror, you're the person that's going to save you. But it could be really disheartening when you're like, I'm trying to do all the right things and I'm still having the same experience. And for me, it was a constant financial cycle of being broke all the time, being in debt. And then when I would get money, I would spend it really fast because I'm like, oh my God, we better get everything we need now because the money is going to be gone. Right. So it really came from a lack type of mindset, but there's some things that I did and didn't do that actually started to create real change. And I swear by it. And I want to share it with you on this podcast episode. So most people, like I said, get stuck in their vicious cycle of repetitive cycles and keep having the same human experience show up and up because they don't stop thinking about their problems, right? And this is not just about thinking positive and thinking negative. This is like scientific stuff that I'm going to share here with you guys. So your thoughts, right, create an emotion. And then an emotion then releases a chemical and a gene response in your body. The emotion creates this thing going on in your body. Your brain secretes this chemical, and your genes are affected. And they start putting off a different type of frequency that is affected, right? The frequency goes out to quantum intelligence, into infinite. Let's try to talk here. Into the quantum field of infinite intelligence is stimulated by the chemicals, by your genes, by the emotions, by the thoughts. We go back into it or forward into it. And then voila, you've created the same sort of cosmic soup, as I like to call it. Because why? You kept putting in the same freaking ingredients, the same chemicals, the same gene responses, the same emotions, right? The same thoughts, because we have over 50,000 thoughts per day. And on the majority, and I don't have percentage in front of me, are unconsciously created because of your past experiences. So your brain automatically does its thinking without letting you get involved, the conscious thinker, right? The conscious awareness. And so that's why a lot of people get stuck, because they don't know how to change their thoughts to change the emotion, or we're with those going, oh, emotion, I'm having fear. What's the underlying thought? How did I get this thought that's so repetitive that it created a fear and a belief where my body and my brain are responding chemically, right? So the secret to creating real change without trying to control your life by doing something is about taking yourself out of the equation, right? So for me, and for a lot of you guys, when I was going through that vicious cycle of being broke and then depressed and then trying to climb out of that hole and then falling back in, right? It was a lot of my mindset, a lot of my thoughts, a lot of my beliefs. And some of that lack mindset was, if any of you guys have lack mindset, or are you saying yes to some of these? Fear of spending money, especially fear of spending money on yourself, right? That entitlement, being like, well, I deserve this chunk of money that came. Therefore, I'm just going to spend it on all the things that I want, versus having an actual logical mind about budgeting, right? It's part of that lack mindset. So spending that money fast, like fast, before I can give myself grief about it, because I deserve this right now, right? But then being broke and being depressed. Fear of checking my mail. I used to have fear of checking my mail, fear of checking my bank account, just fear of financial hardship. So then when you're having all that fear constantly, you're in a fight or flight mode. So your whole system is out of whack. And so you're constantly in fight or flight mode. So you're expecting a financial hardship. And the universe says, as you wish, right? So it would just provide you with those expectations. So I did a lot of work with my lack mindset by reading books and all the things, right? But also, I wanted to do a lot of self-development. I read a lot of self-development books. I've been into self-development since I was little and could climb a tree, right? But still, even though I was this spiritual woman and I'm reading all the self-development, I was still trying to control my external environment by doing something or not doing something. So trying to work extra, hustling, trying to find clients, lowering my prices. There's that lack mindset because you're thinking that there's not enough money out there for everybody, or lowering your prices so that you can get more clients so that you can pay the mortgage. Like it's this vicious cycle. And what that comes down to is it's lack of faith as well, right? Because faith is connected with infinite, divine. You're in alignment. You have this faith. So if you're operating from a space of faith, you're not running around like a crazy lady trying to solve all your own problems, right? Versus the control is totally where a lot of us get stuck. It's easy. We're third dimension. We're humans. We've been taught that. We've been programmed. So you're trying to do things in order to save yourself, but you're still operating in this vicious circle. It's pretty fucking depressing. I'll tell you what. So at one point, I didn't know what else to do. So the only thing I could do was retreat into a meditation practice. And that, honestly, my friends, is what completely changed me. Because like I was saying earlier, is you have to take yourself out of the equation. Because if you're a walking robot every day, you get up and you do the same things and you wake up in the middle of the night and you worry about the same things. In order to create real lasting change, you have to intervene. You have to stop that. So one of them is like, stop. Oh my God, I'm freaking out about money. I'm worried. And then stop and then go have this present moment, whether it's meditation or going for a walk, just getting yourself out of that state of being. Because that's what creates your external environment, is your state of being, your identity, right? So with the meditation, what happens here is you end up separating yourself from yourself. Essentially, you go to a place where you're not Brandaleen, you're not in Las Vegas, it's not a Tuesday, it's not this time of day, it's not this cycle of the month. There's no bills due now, right? These are all the thoughts that you identify yourself with. I'm not supposed to be doing something right now. I'm just here. But once you get into your meditation practice, and I'll share some tips on how to get into that. But once you really start getting into it, you find this little place, even if it's only for half a second, you find this little place where you're like, oh my God, everything's okay. Everything's so okay right now. And I actually feel kind of good. So the more that you can find that space, the more disconnected you are from who you don't want to be, right? The more disconnected you are from this cycle that you're constantly creating. So the more that you could spend time in this sweet spot, called the sweet spot of meditation, the more you start changing your state of being. So instead of constantly, incessantly worrying, you're like, oh, there's a few moments in my day. Maybe you go in for 2 or 3 dips. I call it a dip into the meditation. I used to do that a lot. Still to this day, if something just isn't right, I usually will go for like a meditative walk now. But if there's something not right in my system and I feel energy that I don't want to feel, then I know it's been triggered by something. And I either need to find out where the trigger was by sitting in the silence in the space, or by going for a walk and getting grounded and letting that flow out of your body. Right. So again, this meditative practice helps you be in the space where there's nothing wrong and you're not broke and you're not depressed. And the more that you can expand that space, plus scientifically, so much happens with all the serotonin in your brain. It helps relieve stress. So it lowers your cortisol levels that are that create stress, that create all kinds of disease, right? Dis-ease. But best of all, you start that space that I'm talking about is the space where you're connected to source energy. And when you're connected to source, it allows this avenue for good to come, for good to come, for good to come, right? So let me be clear here. I wasn't like chanting affirmations or anything. Yes, I have some of my favorite ones, but it wasn't that, because that's just chattering over your beliefs, chattering over the emotions, chattering over the chemicals. They do help, but chemically changing your body and chemically changing your state of being and changing your actual frequency to be in alignment with source energy while you're not thinking about your problems opens you up for more divine to come in. And then here's the neat thing. It's like, I talked about this before, like you start out thinking, and then you start out having an experience with that thought, and then it becomes you. But meditation speeds that process up. So you can use meditation for different things. I like to do a silent meditation for myself. That just helps me come into myself, cutting my cords, getting away from all the distractions. A lot of times I could feel even my aura is like all staticky. And just that silent meditation gets all of that off. It brings you down, gets you into this beautiful place. Or once you get to the sweet spot, once you're kind of grounded in, that's when it would be great to add in, if you desire, what it is that you do desire, how it is that you want to feel. And then you could do these types of visualizations, because what is a visualization, right? Like, it's reverse clairvoyance. It's you tapping into the fourth dimension where things are created before they get to the third dimension, and literally imagining and seeing your future self, your future experience, the future way you want to feel. Everything that you can imagine already exists, but feeling the feelings while you're imagining it helps anchor it in, anchor it in, anchor it in, and eventually things can change. So now that has happened with me, anytime I feel flight or fight, I know that that's like my ego trying to control situations, and that something is out of alignment. And that's when I go into my meditative practice. I do like to meditate more often than that, but certainly if something bubbles up, it's time to meditate. If you have angst, it's time to meditate. If you have anger, it's time to meditate. It's okay to have those emotions, angst, sadness, anger. It's all right. They're emotions, but learn to like work with them and have them work for you, so to say. So how to meditate, right? I recommend, just if you're not meditating, start off with just 5 minutes, 5 days a week. And I do want to tell you, if you're not meditating, you don't have a practice, it may, and I don't want to put any labels on it, seem difficult, or you may start thinking about hot dogs and that you have to make a phone call, and then you go back to the breath, and then it's like, oh my God, I can't even meditate. That's because you have so much stress on your nervous system that your mind chatter is like running your freaking life without you, right? It's running your life without you. So don't give up. Keep doing this practice. Count your breath. And I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out. I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out. Or you could just do 1 sheep, 2 sheep, but really it's about just being aware of your situation, aware of where you're at, and not allowing the mind chatter to take over. The mind chatter will take over, but then you get to go, okay, I was off on left field, doing errands in my head. Now I'm coming back. the more that you do the practice, that's why we call it a practice, just like yoga practice, right? The more you do the practice, the easier it will become for you to find the sweet spot. The easier it will be for you to hold off on the thoughts. I like to think of it, I don't know if you guys know what a retaining wall is, but a retaining wall is something that holds back everything. So say your neighbor lives way above you, or something like that. That wall is holding everything back. So I like to think about a retaining wall when I'm meditating, and when the thoughts start coming over, I'm like, oh, they built up so much on this side, they're spilling over. And so then it's just like, come back, just come back, just come back. If it's really hard for you to start, then I recommend an open eyes meditation, where your one less sense is being taken away, because your brain wants to be in control. And so if your eyes are closed, that might be a big trigger for you at first. So it's okay to take an object like a candle, and just stare at it, or a petal of a flower and staring at nature. Holy shit balls. Just becoming aware. You can stare at a baby ant and just stare and become so aware of where it's going, and just keep focusing on that. If you start thinking about other things, go back to the ant, go back to the flower, go back to the object you're looking at. So those are just a couple little techniques for you guys. But again, when we're talking about manifestation in a way, right? But we're talking about transforming your life. And we're talking about how your life got to be the way it is now because of the thoughts, emotions, beliefs, expectations, the chemicals in your genes, that the frequency they're putting off. But in order to make these changes, scientifically speaking, you get to learn how all of this is affecting your life, your external life, based on what you're telling the quantum field. And then when you do this meditation practice, it starts aligning like your mind with your heart, with your body. And so you're more in, I want to say, like coherence. You're more working together instead of against each other, because right now you might be, having all these worried thoughts, these emotions, all those things. But with this practice, it's going to help you have more awareness and just feel a hell of a lot better. That's what I have to say about that. So hopefully this helps you guys be able to shift your state of being, is one of the most important aspects of this little podcast episode, so that your external environment changes. You have to practice for a while, right? The law of attraction, that doesn't happen right away, or else you would be asking for an elephant and it would be squishing you right now. So you have a little bit of a time delay. Plus, with the law of attraction, as you're going through this process, you might think you want something, but as you're going through that process, you find out, you know what? Oh, wow, I thought I wanted this, but I don't. And so you're able to pivot during your manifestation process. And that's why sometimes people think it takes time. It's because the universe really wants to dial in on exactly what it is you really want. Because you could say you want something, but your stomach, your body might not want that. And so then you're sending mixed messages to the universe and getting a mixed bag of nuts. So spending time in this meditation practice, disconnecting from who you really are, disconnecting from the external circumstances of looking at the mailbox, checking your bank account, knowing when your mortgage is due, just connecting from all that is actually connecting you to the wonderful things that could come to you, right? So unbecoming yourself is really the step, the inner work step that needs to happen, versus trying to control, trying to hustle. That's ego. It just takes you further away from where it is that you really want to go. And I feel like that's probably what happened to me that many years ago, when I was like, fine, I give up. There's nothing else I could do. I'm working my ass off. And all that old mindset shit, like, the why me, the all this, get out of there, do this meditative practice, and then welcome the new blessings that are coming, and recognize, a big tip here for you guys is recognize when something new comes in and give freaking gratitude for it, and recognize it and look for the blessings, look for something new. Because honestly, when you are like almost snowed over, you're almost hypnotized by the reality that you've already created, that you're not even able to see the blessings come in. There's that book, The Course in Miracles. It just teaches you that literally every single thing is a miracle. And if you're not seeing it, it's because you're out of alignment. And that's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people if they're in a difficult situation. But it's all part of your process of growth, part of your process from healing from trauma, part of your process from healing from your body and mind being addicted to your stress chemicals, being addicted to your perspective, right? Being angry or frustrated a lot. Those are chemicals and your body gets addicted to them, just like nicotine or alcohol or anything like that. Then your body's like seeking those chemicals and seeking the feeling that comes along with that, because for some reason people may find peace by feeling the rush of being angry. It's a very true thing. So backing out of that, going into your meditative practice, and then starting recognizing the feelings that come up and starting to focus on the things that you want to see that are there in your life. You just haven't noticed them. Big changes will be coming your way. So I hope you guys love this podcast and the tips that I gave you here, and kind of understand, scientifically what's going on biologically with you versus the infinite intelligence quantum fields.